Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today we are going to be doing something a bit more intimate, a bit more, I'm sure you can tell by the title, it's going to be a video all about my mental health journey. I'm not going to dive into everything because honestly we would be here for hours if I really, really dove into the deep-rooted issues, but I got a request to do this a couple of weeks ago and I didn't really know how best to approach it, so I went to Instagram and I just asked you guys specific things that you wanted me to talk about within my mental health journey and said that I would share them with you guys and we would just kind of have a heart-to-heart where I will be talking to you guys, but unfortunately I will not be able to hear you guys talking back, so I will rely on the comment section after. But I feel that every time I've done a video about my mental health, I am typically not in the best place. I am having one of my moments. I call them moments, I don't know what else to refer to them as, but just like an episode of depression, an episode of anxiety, an extreme episode of my mental OCD, and I come to YouTube as an outlet to really kind of get my thoughts in order and remind myself that I'm not alone. I just kind of talk to myself, but in turn you guys hear it, help some of you guys, and then you guys end up helping me too. That's kind of the track record I've had in the past, but today I wanted to come to you from a place where I've probably been the best I've ever been in a really long time, and it's a really exciting thing, it's a really beautiful thing, and I just thought what better time than now to really take you guys through my journey with my mental health and with, you know, the different diagnoses I've gotten for the things that I've dealt with. I just kind of wrote like a little list of things for me to talk about. There's not going to be any specific order. I'm gonna try to like take you from the beginning to the end, but again, this is not totally in depth. Also, a few disclaimers. I am not a medical professional. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a psychiatrist. I am not advising or telling you guys how to treat your own mental health issues, but I am just really speaking from my own experience and the things that have worked for me. So please bear that in mind. Another thing, I don't know that there will be triggers in this video. I don't know everything I'm going to talk about, but there is a chance that there will be triggers for you because I don't know what your triggers are. Everyone has different triggers. So please be mindful of that when you're watching this video. And the final thing I want to say is if you are feeling suicidal, if you are having any thoughts of ending your life, I'm going to leave a couple resources down below of suicide prevention hotlines and other links that I really encourage you to check out. Realize that your life is valuable and you have a purpose here on earth, and do not forget that. Okay, so that's it for the disclaimers. Let's go ahead and discuss my mental health journey. So for as long as I can remember, I have had anxiety, and this I've actually never fully opened up to you guys about because it's scary to talk about and it's hard because I know a lot of people don't understand it, and so when you don't understand it, it's really easy to judge, it's really easy to call someone crazy, it's easy to say that you wouldn't want to be around that person because you don't trust them anymore, and I get that. And I was scared of my own self for a long time because of it, but I have had something called mental OCD forever. I mean, since I was a little girl and before I knew what mental OCD was. So there are different variations of mental OCD. There is relationship OCD, there's harm OCD, there's pedophilia OCD, there's homophobia OCD. There's an OCD for everything, because at the end of the day, even with physical contact, you can have OCD, whether it's counting, whether it's washing your hands over and over again, whether it's organizing things in a very specific way. Like, there are so many different variations of it. And so for me, it started with harm OCD. So harm OCD is the fear of harming yourself or harming others. And it sounds very bizarre because to the average person who doesn't know what that's like, it's just like, well, why would you be afraid of hurting people? But with it, it's basically this overwhelming fear that you're gonna snap, that you're gonna lose control, that something's gonna happen when you don't have control of yourself. So maybe sleepwalking, or if you take medication, like even if you take a painkiller, like you could just develop these very bizarre fears, irrational fears that you're gonna hurt somebody or an animal. And typically it's people that you're the closest to. So for me, I was afraid of hurting my mom. When I lived with my aunt, I was afraid of hurting my aunt. And it got so bad that it got to a point where when I was a little girl, I would keep myself awake until the wee hours of the night, until I physically could not stay awake anymore. I would hide all sharp objects. We didn't really have any weapons, obviously, but just pens, pencils, anything that to me could be used as a weapon, I hid. And you can imagine how obsessive that can become, because when you think about it, like anything could be a weapon. And my biggest fear was that while I was sleeping, okay, so not having any control, and I had no history of sleepwalking, but that I would lose control and that I would wake up and I would have harmed somebody that I loved. This went on and off for years, and I didn't know what it was, and I don't even think that doctors fully knew what it was yet, and so I just remember thinking I was crazy. I was like, there's something wrong with me. I remember thinking like, there's something wrong with me. Like, what if deep down I'm some sort of killer, and you don't understand it, and so it's really, really scary. And even now talking about it, I feel myself fearing judgment, because I just know that people have probably never heard of this, because when I've talked to my friends about it, they didn't know until they met me. So I just went through this ongoing battle of never understanding it, and I remember telling my mom about it, and bless her soul, it could actually make me cry, because she was so, these are like happy tears, they're like thankful tears, but when I told her, I was like, Mom, and I'm like a little girl, okay, I'm like 9, 10 years old at this point when I finally decided to tell her about it. I'm like, Mom, sometimes I get these really scary, intrusive thoughts that I'm gonna hurt you. And she's like, what do you mean? And I was like, I hide things, she's like, yeah, like, what is that? Like, I think it was one of those things that we never really talked about, but it happened. And I was like, I just get so afraid that I'm gonna sleepwalk, that I'm gonna hurt you, or that I'm gonna like just do something crazy in my sleep. And my mom goes, well, do you wanna hurt me? And I was like, no, and that's why it's so scary, because you're my world, and I'm so scared that I'm gonna do something when I don't. It was just, it's not a conversation that a mother probably ever wants to have with their child, and it's not a conversation that a child ever wants to have with their parent. It's scary, and it's not easy to understand, and oh God, I really hope that talking about this helps you guys, because I did not know that I was gonna jump into the OCD side of things, but if you guys are gonna know me, you're gonna know me. That was scary, and something that my mom was so sweet and so understanding, and she just said to me, I love you regardless, and I don't think you're ever gonna hurt me, but I love you, and I'm so thankful that you told me, but it's okay. Like, I feel safe with you. And that, as a little girl, it made me feel normal, because I was so scared, because I didn't understand that feeling. God damn it. I'm happy, I swear I'm happy. It's just, it's hard to talk about, but she brought me so much peace that for the next several years, it was something that still weighed on me, but it didn't affect me as much as it once did before she knew, because I was like, my mom's gonna send me off to like a psych ward. She's gonna think that there's something wrong with me and that I really need help, which I later did, and I ended up getting help, and it ended up being such a game changer for me. But so after my mom passed away, the mental OCD turned into just OCD, right? So she passed away. The loss of my mom was incredibly difficult for me. I mean, it's hands down the most traumatic thing I've ever been through in my entire life. You guys only know so much, but my mom was home when she passed away. It was me and a few other family members in the house, because we knew it was gonna be happening that night. I was the one that had to wake everyone up and tell them what had happened and have her pulse be checked. It's something that never leaves you. And so that affected me in its own way, where I started counting, or I would pray that amount of times. I would repeat like biblical words that amount of times. It was like the only way that I felt at peace, or I felt I was just this strange, I would be driving and I'd go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. God, 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 God. Pray, 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 pray. Like, it was just the most difficult thing, and I think even at that moment I didn't really understand. To me, I was like, oh, this is just soothing. Just saying this makes me feel better, rather than actually processing the fact that it was OCD, because if I counted to 17, then I had to count to 17 times. Do you get what I'm saying? It was just a never-ending cycle, and I was in denial about that for a long time. And that slowly faded as I actually started to go to counseling just for bereavement. So all of my stuff has gone up and down. Obviously, at the same time, I'm dealing with depression, so as a coping mechanism for the depression. I will never forget this day. I had to stop watching action films, movies that involved seeing someone get killed, seeing someone get shot, And I didn't understand why. It just made me feel ill. It made me feel really sick. And the movie that I saw was, I think it was London Has Fallen, and they showed a scene, oh my God, it still actually makes me feel so nauseous, just because I don't do well with gore in general, but a scene of someone getting their throat slit. And it was just very, it was there. And I was like, okay, that made me not feel good. Like, that really scares me. I went home that night. This is when I was meal prepping. So I don't know if I had my YouTube channel yet. I think my YouTube channel came a few months later. I was meal prepping and I was cutting raw chicken. And this is the first experience that I had where it was a trigger for me. Cutting raw meat became a trigger where, because the way that I would bake chicken when I would like prep meals, when I would prep meals, is I'd put like 4 to 5 turkey breasts on a glass thing, and I would cut them down the center of the chicken breast because it helps kind of help them cook faster because you're getting into the center of the meat. Actually, I don't even know if that works. That's just what my aunt would tell me to do. And when I was cutting the chicken that night, I had to stop. Like halfway through, I couldn't do it. And my aunt just saw me like sitting on the sofa in the corner, and she's like, what's going on? I was like, I can't be near that chicken. I can't, like, it reminds me too much of flesh. It reminds me too much of flesh, and it really freaked me out. It was just really bad. So I should backtrack. Around 15 or 16, I ended up Googling the things that I was feeling, the fear of hurting someone, the fear of hurting myself, and I ended up discovering mental OCD. It still wasn't called harm OCD yet, but I remember reading this forum of people being like, oh my God, I go through the same thing, and you know what, like, I don't understand this. I'm so happy to find people that have been through this as well. And I, again, felt less crazy. And one of the things they said was like, I was so afraid that if I went to a therapist and told them this, that people in white coats were gonna come and drag me into a psych ward. And I was like, oh my God, that is everything I've ever feared, everything I've ever felt. And so I kind of got some peace through that as well. I mean, it was just one of those things that I would research, and I was like, okay, I'm not crazy. Like, this is something that people go through, and like, it's not fully understood yet, but I'm not alone in this. Flash forward back to the meat thing. It became a long thing at the time, and it got to the point where it was actually debilitating. I couldn't leave my bed. I locked my bedroom door at night. I went back to hiding things that scared me, sharp objects, like anything to me that could be used as a weapon. And my aunt about it, and again, she reacted a lot like my mom, just so calm and understanding. And I think it's because my family knows that I'm not gonna do these things. And they knew how irrational it was, but to me, it felt so close to being a possibility. And it got so bad that I didn't want to drink. I was so afraid of drinking alcohol because it all came down to a loss of control, which takes me back to the loss of my mom, honestly. Like, I've talked to therapists about this too, and they say that because I had so little control of the events happening in my life, my mom passed away, I lived with her, I then moved in with a friend's family, I then moved in with my aunt. Like, my whole life changed. I was just constantly afraid of more loss of control. So any circumstance I would put myself into that would involve a loss of control, aka sleeping, aka drinking, smoking weed, anything, I was like, no, I don't know. What if I lose control of myself? I just don't know what's gonna happen. On my birthday, I remember being terrified of these things. So that was a thing for a long time. There's another form of OCD I had that I don't feel like I'm quite ready to get into, just because I'm like, this is already a big thing that we're opening up into, but it was at that moment that I realized that I needed to go to therapy because it was affecting my relationships with the people around me, because I didn't want to leave my room. I didn't want to have any pets. Like, I was terrified. I was so scared of myself. It was getting to a point where I wasn't finding the value in being alive anymore, because to me, I was like, if I'm gonna live my entire life in fear, I don't know what the point of this is. And I think it's emotional looking back on this now, because I was so scared. And I felt, even though there were these people online, I knew in the real world I was alone, and in my feelings, and no one fully understanding them. And so I think I just like look back on these days, and I'm so happy that I've progressed to where I'm at now, because this is years ago. Like, I can't remember the last time I've had an intrusive thought, and it just breaks my heart because it was so scary. And the fact that it got me to a point where I was like, I don't want to be alive anymore. Like, if these are the thoughts that I'm gonna spend my life having, like, I can't find the purpose in being alive anymore. I started seeing a therapist. This was now probably 3 or 4 years ago, and she changed my life. I was having a really bad episode when I was in Toronto, and this is where I mean, like, you guys just had no idea what was actually going on. You guys only saw so much. I would talk about my mental health, but just, it was so limited in what you guys knew. But I was having a terrible episode in Toronto where I was crying, I didn't want to be alive, I was scared, and I just Googled mental OCD therapy or something like that. I don't remember what it was that I Googled, but it brought me to this article, and it was called like the Institution of OCD, or I don't remember now. I'll find her website, because I want to actually reference my therapist, because if it were not for her, I genuinely swear on my life, I do not know what my life would be like right now. I don't even know that I would still be here. And that's really, I know, real and scary to say, but that is fact. And mental health is a real thing, and depression is a real thing. Suicidal thoughts are a real thing, and I went there. I really did. So I found this article, and it was like, do you feel that you have harm OCD? There's all these categories, and I was like, some of them, yes, I connected to, and some of them I didn't connect to. I was like, oh my God, I wonder if this person's a therapist. If I could find a therapist on this website that can help me. That can help me get through this, because all I wanted was help. And immediately I found her and I called her and I just left her voicemail, and it was a very panicked voicemail, because it was like desperation mixed with fear. She called me 15 minutes later. She talked on the phone with me for an hour. One, damn near gave me a therapy session on the phone, because she could hear that I needed it. Calmed me down so much, and then goes, I'm located in LA. I was like, oh my God, I live in LA? And I had Kaiser at the time, and she was like an out of network thing, because it wasn't Kaiser. And I paid her like $185 a session, and I had to go see her once or twice a week, and she just genuinely changed my life. So I can't remember all the treatments we did at this point. It's been a couple of years, but really, like, it was a lot of different things, and a lot of it was, oh my gosh, yeah, thinking back, it was actually brutal at the time. It's really hard when they tell you what it is that you have to do, because to you, it's such a scary thing to do, when realistically, it's so harmless. And I don't really want to get into the exact fears that I had, because one, I do think that could genuinely be triggering for people who have harm OCD, and also, some of this is like, I'm not ready to go into, because I don't even talk to like friends about it, because it was just traumatizing for me at the time. Keep in mind, like, it's not actually, to anybody else, they do it with no issue. But when you have these intrusive thoughts, they're so scary to do, and to you, it's just like, no, like, I can't do that. That's way too real. And it would be things with like a stuffed animal, or looking in the mirror. So we did a lot of things like that. We did a lot of rewiring the way that my brain processes thoughts. She recommended OCD workbooks. I actually had homework that I would take home. So I went on to see her for about 6 months. And after the 6 months, I was making progress, but I was still really struggling. And it got to the point where she said, let's open the conversation about medication. And I was so opposed to medication for a long time, because to me, medication was failing. If I had to get on an antidepressant or an anti-anxiety medication, to me, that was being a failure, and that was giving into the system, and I didn't want to be that person. And she was just so calm and collected and kind about it. She ended up setting me up a consultation. She's like, how about you just go meet with her, see what she has to say. She's like, because it's getting to a point where I know therapy is helping you, but I know that you could make even more improvement. If you are open to this, I think that medication can help you. I was like, well, what would you recommend? And she said sertraline. It's an antidepressant, for one, and it's also very commonly used in OCD. It's something that has to build up in your system. So it's not like a chill pill that you take when you're really stressed and you pop it and you feel good. It's like slowly builds up in your system, and you start to feel the effects. I was like, okay, I don't know, I'm probably not gonna do it, but like, I'll take the appointment. I'll do a therapy session with her and see what she has to say. So it was a psychiatrist. So I had my meeting with her, I think like 3 weeks later. She recommended sertraline to me, otherwise known as Zoloft. I don't know if there's various names for it. I think it's sertraline is Zoloft, and started at a very low dose. So we started with 15, worked up to 25, worked up to 50, worked up to 75, and then I stopped seeing her. And the only reason I stopped is because my life changed after that. The first month was brutal, okay? I was staying with my aunt and my grandma, and I just remember feeling like I was having like an out-of-body experience. It felt like dissociation, where I just felt like I was in a dream. Like I don't even know what that would feel like now, but it just felt like everything wasn't real and that everything was a dream and that it was just like an out of body experience and it was not fun. I got killer migraines, which they warned me about. That went on for like 3 to 4 weeks. And then one day, and this is like the most beautiful day, I was in Toronto and I was just like, I don't feel anxious today. I don't feel scared. I don't have the intrusive thoughts. And that's typically what happens with OCD though, is like one day you wake up and the flare-up is gone. I call it a flare-up because it is like a flare-up. It comes out of nowhere and you're just like, oh yeah, I don't know why I was so anxious all those months. Because when you have these thoughts, you wake up out of your sleep with your heart pounding in your chest, sweating, sick to your stomach. Like it's not something that eases in throughout the day. You wake up feeling ill and that's exhausting on your body. My cortisol levels, girl. One day I woke up and I was like, I don't want to get too excited because maybe this is just a fluke and you know, the medicine isn't actually working and I'm just feeling feelings today. You know, I don't know. Maybe I'm just feeling good. It's just a good day. But each day got better. Each day got better and better and I was genuinely becoming a new person and I could see it and I could just feel it happening. So I ended up doing therapy for another like 2 or 3 months. And then I just stopped. And granted, this is where I will say therapy is so important. I probably should have continued therapy because I still had a lot of other underlying issues that I had to deal with, like things, ghosts in my closet that I just have tucked deep down below the surface that find ways to show themselves in other ways. Like they would show themselves through like anger, extreme sadness, you know, things like that. And I should have continued therapy for that reason, but I didn't. And I decided to work through that on my own, which is not something that I would recommend. That's kind of where I feel like the extremities of my mental health journey ended. So that's like my story. Now I want to kind of talk about some of the things that you guys asked. I wrote down the ones that stood out to me the most. So the first is discussing therapy and meds and self-help books, which I've kind of talked about before, but all I could say about that is therapy is your friend. If you're not gonna do any of the other things, which is fine, go to therapy, go to therapy, go to therapy, go to therapy. If you are somebody who doesn't have health insurance and you can't afford therapy, it's different in every state and even in every city or county, but there are a lot of low income therapy places that you can go to. There are a lot of free therapy places that you can go to. Oftentimes people that study at like USC or USF typically will offer discounted rates on therapy. There are so many resources out there and there are so many options. I know that there's a lot of online therapy options now. There is a way, and I just promise you there is a way. Just having a professional to talk to about the things that you're feeling, that you're thinking, things that have affected you gravely in the past is so important. When it comes to medication, I totally understand and respect the fact that there are people out there that don't want to take meds. Either they don't want to become reliant on a medication, you know, because honestly, like if I ever wanted to stop, I would actually have to wean myself off of it. Some people would rather kind of take like an Eastern medicinal approach or stick to marijuana or do yoga. And if there's anything I can say as far as a recommendation to that is to just find what works for you as long as it is healthy and good for your soul and your mind. To supplement my medication, I was also doing my OCD workshop, like pamphlet books, and I was also doing yin meditation like once a week. Self-help books can really be a hit or miss. I don't think that when you read a self-help book you should take it as the word of the world. Like I think it's just something that you can read to just kind of like help bring positive thoughts in. I don't think that it's something that you should be necessarily taking advice from, but I think that they can be nice to kind of, when you're going through these things and you're really scared, you don't want to read about anything else. Like you want to read about what you're going through, but you want to read it in a positive form and you want to hear about other people who have been through similar things. There were a lot of books that I read during my OCD phase, and I really read it to help me feel less alone and to help me think more positively. I read a lot of like positive books because when you're spending so much time thinking negatively, those positive books help. I wasn't able to read any action, you know, thriller, fun books that I can now read. So I was like, well, what am I gonna do? Like, that's what I wanna be reading. So then I just read positive books. But as far as like how I dealt with anxiety and calming down after panic attacks, that was something you guys asked about a lot, is talking to people. And it would happen in Toronto. It would happen when I was alone. It would happen when I was on an airplane. I mean, and the airplane one is the worst one because you can't Google anything. You're most likely on the flight by yourself. And so I would write. So when I was on an airplane, I was fully alone. I could not talk to anyone. I was gonna be like, hey, random person, let me tell you about all of my mental health issues. I would just get a napkin, I would get a notebook, and I would just write until I couldn't write anymore. I would write about the things I was thinking about. I would write about things that made me happy, and it helped kind of, one, distract me, and also just help me feel like I was getting this information out of inside of me, because it just feels like you're trapped in your own thoughts. Talking to people was so important. I had at least 3 friends that I knew no matter what would not call me crazy, would not laugh at me, would not judge me, and would just listen and be there. And that was so, so important. I don't know what I would have done without some of those people. And I guess the final thing that I'll say as far as, you know, my mental health journey story, because this has been really nice actually to talk about, it's like gone through the whole journey of it with you guys, is that I didn't touch too much on the depression. I know that there's an audience out there who has dealt with harm OCD, because I know I've talked about it vaguely, but not as in detail as I have today. As far as depression, I did have my moments with that. I've had multiple times in my life where I dealt with suicidal thoughts. There was a couple years ago on Halloween where I felt the most alone I've ever felt in my whole life. I'm pretty sure I had a YouTube channel at the time. I was still working at the salon, and I became so depressed and felt so alone and felt so unloved for no reason, okay? Nobody was technically doing anything. It was just my own feeling. And this wasn't too long after my mom passed away, maybe a year, 2 years. And I wrote out a letter. I wrote out a goodbye letter. I still have it somewhere. I don't know where I put it. I have no idea. Maybe I have thrown it away by now. I haven't seen it in a long time, but it was terrifying, and it was very, I just remember like driving from a Halloween party with some girls that I knew in high school, and I don't remember anything past like a freeway exit that is like 20 minutes from my house. I don't remember anything beyond that. I don't remember what I was thinking. I don't remember what I was feeling. I don't even remember anything but pulling into the driveway and being like, this is it. Like, this is the night that I'm gonna do this. And I wrote out my letter, and I cried, and I walked towards what I was gonna do to, I don't know, I mean, I think my mom as a guardian angel is just constantly over me. I don't know what, but something snapped. Like, I was almost moving robotically and not emotional, not crying, just very like, yep, like this is it. This is what I'm doing. Wasn't responding to anyone's text messages. I just was like off the grid. Something snapped as I made it to what I was gonna do, and I just slammed on the floor and started sobbing. So who knows? I don't know if I was actually gonna follow through. I don't know if it was a cry for help. I don't know what it was. But in that moment, it felt surefire, and it was scary. It was really scary, and I went to work the next day as if nothing had ever happened, and bless my brother's soul, because he was the one that stayed on the phone with me for probably 3 hours after everything had happened, because I called him. It was like midnight, and I was just hysterical and just so not good. Not good. And he stayed on the phone with me the entire time, and I swear people like him make the biggest difference in my life. And so I had to go into work the next day as if none of that had happened. I remember going to the salon and being like, wow, none of you guys even know. None of you guys will ever know the night that I just had last night. But then I also was like, I don't know if they had a similar night or in the past, and I don't know. It was just such a strange way of thinking, and that's when I became incredibly aware. So I've been through all of these things. I've been through anxiety. I've had panic attacks. I've had breakdowns. I've had the suicidal, intrusive, scary thoughts. I've had them all. And all I want to say to anyone who's currently going through that is just do whatever you need to do to help yourself that is healthy and good for your body and soul. This means seeing a therapist, eliminating negative people from your life, focusing on having a good core group of people, changing your hobbies. If you like to stay at home all day, go out, go for a walk at the park, take up a spin class, or take up a painting class, or if you don't have money to take up a painting class, buy yourself a little canvas and fuck around on a canvas for a little while. Do what's gonna help your soul, because at the end of the day, we really can only help ourselves. Anyone else that can be a part of the picture is just beautiful. That's beautiful. It's great news. But I just want you to know that this isn't it. This is a temporary feeling. As genuinely real as it feels right now, this is not forever. This is temporary, and there is so much beauty to come in the future, and there is help for everything that you feel. There is. And you can make it through this. If I could do it, you could do it. And I have the utmost faith in you. And once you get past it, I would always talk about it as like a dark tunnel. and you just see like, it's a long dark tunnel, but you see like the tiniest little light at the end of the tunnel because it's so damn far down, but you're like, oh, there's light down there. I see it, I just gotta get to it. It might take me a minute to get there, but I'm gonna get there. And who knows, maybe I'll find a lighter on the way and it'll kind of help light up the walls around me so that I can still kind of see where I'm going and navigate my path. And that's things like therapy. That's things like good people in your life. And then the lighter fluid might run out and you're like, fuck. So then you find some wood and you start learning how to make, you know, fire out of wood and rocks. And my point is, you can do it. It's not gonna be easy, but it is gonna be worth it. And I have faith in you. You have a purpose here. Don't ever doubt that. With all of that said, I'm gonna go ahead and end this video. I really hope that it helped you guys. I don't know when I'll do something like this again. I feel like this is as real as it's gonna get. You guys now know the real deal. I hope that this helped you guys, and I love you guys so much, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Besitos, bye.